The reason you don't have the life you want yet isn't what you think it is. It's not because you started with less. It's not because you don't know the right people. It's not because you don't have the best ideas. It's self-sabotage. You're your own worst critic. You're feeling like you're not doing good enough. You're looking around at other people and thinking they're so much further ahead than you. It's not incurable. You just need to know the signs about whether you're being your own worst enemy or not. In this video, I'm gonna break down the 7 signs that you are your own worst enemy, and then we're gonna come up with solutions to stop the pain in the day-to-day and actually start feeling joy and forward momentum again. But if you don't know who I am, my name is Colby Wechter, so why the hell should you listen to me? I was my own worst enemy for years, and it was manifested in running a 7-figure agency where I had to do everything, where I was constantly frustrated, working 70, 80-hour weeks, burning myself out, saying yes to everything. And that negative self-talk that entered my mind made me constantly question whether I was doing the right thing or not. But after 7 years of running the agency that way, I did a complete 180, having burnt out twice in the same year. I basically scrapped all of that. And so the 7 signs I'm going to show you today are going to be huge contributors to how you get forward momentum, as they were for me, because within the next 12 months, we went from $1 million at the agency to $2.5 million, and I was only working 8 hours per week. All right, so let's dive in. The first one is negative self-talk. Now, this is manifested in a whole bunch of different ways. Ways where you hear words like, I can't do this, or I'm stupid, or why am I not figuring this out? These are examples of negative self-talk. You're constantly evaluating how well you're doing based on what you see others are doing. So in a way, negative self-talk is really no different than you just comparing yourself to others and assuming that they're doing better than you, and therefore you must be inferior. There must be something wrong with you, and you tell yourself so. In my past, I used to be so upset all the time, and I would just be journaling to myself every day about how I was moving too slow. You're not moving fast enough. Why aren't you working harder? Why don't you have a better idea? Why can't your ideas stick? What is wrong with you? And this negative self-talk turned into this cauldron of me just hating it and not actually getting any forward momentum. Humans are what they repeatedly do. In this case, we're what we repeatedly say. If you keep repeatedly saying that there's something wrong with you, you're going to believe it, and then you're going to behave accordingly. Sign number 2 that you're your own worst enemy is that you're just angry at the system all the time. These are things that are outside of your control. I talk to people regularly who are upset when people don't buy their product, super upset when the algorithm doesn't show their content. They let the weather affect their mood. Every single thing that's out of their control, they just decide to direct their attention and anger at what they can't control rather than let it roll off of them and just keep moving forward. You can't control who sits in the Oval Office. You can't control what the algorithm does. You can't control how somebody reacts to something you say, and you certainly can't control whether someone is ready to buy from you or not. All of these things are completely wasted energy. If it's out of your control, you need to treat it like the weather, full stop. The weather may annoy you, but what choice do you have? If you still have to get to work, it doesn't matter if it's raining, snowing, icy, or what. You have to get there. If you have to pick up your kid from school, it doesn't matter what the weather is, you have to get there. And so what choice do you have? If you can't control it, it needs to go. And we'll talk more about that. Sign number 3 is that you want more without actually having a reason for wanting more. Again, when you're looking into the world of social media and when you're just looking at how you want to progress your career and your life, you constantly are thinking about what's the next thing, what's the next thing, what's the next thing. If you live long enough and actually achieve some of those things, you'll realize either the cost was too great, you didn't want it anyway, or when you do get it, you're wondering what is next. So these things create you being your own worst enemy because you're constantly striving for something that doesn't actually fulfill you. So essentially, instead of spending your time enjoying what you have already, what you're able to achieve on the day-to-day basis, instead of constantly reaching and wanting more, you're gonna be in this endless cycle of just, this isn't good enough, this isn't good enough, this isn't good enough. When I give my son an episode to watch on the weekend, because we don't let him watch during the week, and I say 1 episode, when that episode is done, he's a toddler, he's 4. he'll ask for another one. And so the thing that he normally doesn't get all week, we actually give it to him on the weekend, something he enjoys doing. But once he gets it, he wants another one. And this is the same thing for money, revenue, love, and status, whatever you want. All I wanted when I was in my 20s was to hit a 6-figure salary because I came from nothing. But the year I hit 6 figures in salary, I burnt out twice. That salary didn't make me feel better. That was the worst I'd ever felt in my entire life. Sign number 4 is what I like to call the external master. So you're your own worst enemy if you are seeking validation in everything you do from the outside world. In short, the world doesn't care about you, right? So whether you are seeking a specific reaction when you get vulnerable with someone you care about, or whether you launch a product and want the world to absolutely validate how much of a genius you are, and then you get crickets, you're putting all of your eggs in the basket of what do other people think of me? And that is never going to be something you can control, right? That's the same as the weather, which leads into sign number 5, you're your own worst enemy, is what I call it doesn't work syndrome. You put something out there, it doesn't work, and so therefore you're a fool, therefore you didn't do something correctly, or therefore the whole world is wrong and you're right, or the other way around. And none of that feels good. Airbnb, as an example, the first time they launched, crickets. The second time they launched, crickets. The third time they launched, it became one of the most synonymous brands in the world. Now, if they would have said it doesn't work after the first time, Airbnb would not exist. If they would have said it even after the second time, it wouldn't exist. There is an element and a belief that you have to take on board that things are going to take way longer than you want them to. And so if you try something once, twice, even 10 times and it doesn't work, that doesn't mean it's not going to work at some point. Again, Edison with the light bulb, what did he try? 10,000 ways before it finally worked? His product is in every household in the world that has electricity running through it. You're your own worst enemy, essentially, if you give up too early and say something doesn't work. And I see this every day. People are saying ads don't work, organic doesn't work, networking doesn't work. It's all an excuse. Everything works. You just have to be able to see it through to see it work. Sign number 6 is codependency. And I'm talking about one specific person. Now, this goes a little bit beyond business, but you are your own worst enemy if you have to look to someone else to fill your cup. I was on a podcast recently, and the person ended the show asking me, who inspires you? And my answer was kind of odd, but I said me. Because if all of this was stripped away, if everything was taken from me, I would keep doing exactly what I'm doing. I would fulfill my purpose, fulfill my passion, because I don't need external validation to do what I want to do. And so if you are getting external validation as your main motivator to do anything, that simply means you're too far away from your purpose to actually do what you're meant to do. And that is a burden that you're putting on someone else who can't possibly deliver for you. And sign number 7 is pain avoidance. There's this saying I absolutely subscribe to, and it is growth is 1 foot outside of your comfort zone. And so if you are actively every single day trying to avoid pain, trying to avoid confrontation, trying to avoid being uncomfortable, you're going to have a life that seems easy in the moment, but every time you actually want something that is worthwhile, something that is hard, you'll either shy away from it and not get it, or you'll try it and give up too early. The most successful people I know are constantly uncomfortable. The most successful people I know have had way worse experiences than you and I, and they overcame them anyway. So in short, these are blatant signs that you're not where you want to be because of you. And now you have 2 choices. Choice 1 is you can disagree with every possible thing I've said so far and do nothing. And choice 2 is you can actually say, you know what, this sucks, but it's right, and today is the day to flip the script. So here's how you'll do it. First, you're going to buy The Obstacle is the Way. If you hate stoicism, get over it. Every single element in this book, and I'm reading through it right now for the second time, is when it comes down to it, everything you want is on the other side of the wall. If you're going to stop being your own worst enemy, you need to have some frameworks and tools and stories and inspiration you can pull from to get you over the wall. The misconception with you stopping that self-sabotage and basically being your own worst enemy and actually being your number one cheerleader is having people to reference who overcame it. This is not an isolated story for you. This is not just something you're experiencing. Every single person in the world experiences adversity. That is a guarantee. You will have adversity. So it's not about avoiding adversity. It is about deciding what you're going to do when it shows up, because it will, over and over and over again. And so if you hate Stoicism, get over it. If you don't like reading, get the audiobook. If you don't like listening to audiobooks, watch some videos. They're everywhere, but the obstacle is the way. Second, what I want you to do is create something I call your anti-vision. Now, I'm going to leave this as a resource and a link down below in the description, but basically what you're going to do is identify everything you don't want. If I asked you, where is your life supposed to be in 10 years? What is exactly what you want? It's going to be really hard for you to nail that down. But if I asked you, what do you hate right now in your day-to-day with work, relationships, whatever it is, you would be able to list dozens of things in under a minute. And that's what the anti-vision does, is it gets all of those things out of your head, because in order to create the life you want, you need to know exactly what you don't want. And it's far easier to list those things out. So the anti-vision is just something, as you go through this resource, you'll actually see, and I give my examples here as well, but just go ahead and click on these items, toggle them. This is in Notion. You can duplicate this and do the exercise directly from your new page. But when it comes down to it, first, you're going to fill out every single thing you don't want to do. So for me, I don't want to sound salesy. I don't want to chase leads. I don't want to lose focus. I don't want to work for someone else. All of these things, right? And once you get those in your list, then you simply ask yourself, am I still doing those things? And it's a simple yes or no. Am I spending more than 5 hours a week on calls? As of right now, yes, right? And so am I sounding salesy? No. Am I saying yes to people who don't serve me? Sometimes still, yes, right? And so be really objective. This isn't emotional. You're just putting it into a list. Don't tie emotion to it. No one's judging you. No one's going to see this. This is for you. And then finally, once you're in there, you simply go into the criterion. If you said, yes, am I still doing this? You're going to go and say, can I eliminate this in 30 days? Can I change this in 30 days at the very least? And you want to be putting objective answers in here. If I am on calls more than 5 hours a week, can I change this in 30 days? Yes, absolutely. But I might have to give up quite a bit. For instance, fear that I'm missing out on something. I might have to set that aside if I truly want to hit this number. But the anti-vision is incredibly powerful because it will allow you to actually look at all the things you're still saying yes to and then decide what you can change in 30 days. And that's the final step of this exercise that I want you to do. I want you to pick one. And then I want you to create a timeline. All right, so when you've pulled something away from your anti-vision, just think of the easiest thing you can get rid of, right? When you're doing that, we're gonna do one thing at a time. I want you to not overcomplicate this, okay? I want you to basically just grab a piece of paper, do it on your laptop, doesn't really matter, and then go ahead and make a simple timeline, right? So let's give an example. Something from my anti-vision is that I want to get rid of my student loans. I hate owing people money because I came from nothing. I have more expense than I'd like, right? So let's say my goal on the far right is going to be $0 left of student loans. The whole purpose of the anti-vision is to identify what you don't like. The whole point of this exercise is to get it one item at a time and then work backwards so that you can actually start with the smallest possible step to get to where you want to go. So if I don't want any student loans right now, and I'm going to put my current over here, I have about 30,000 left in student loans. So if we look at this, I know it seems kind of odd because normally you're trying to gain money versus lose it. But in this case, because we're paying, how do I get from having 30,000 I still owe in student loans to 0? And you can put a timeline on this. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it unless you know super crystal clear that you're going to hit it. But if I'm on student loans at 0, what would be the first thing working backwards from absolutely zero to getting that done. As an example, it could be something like my final payment. So what happens before the final payment? I'm going to need to make enough money to be able to make that final payment. So while this isn't a perfect science, make obviously $30K. And if I want to go further back from that, earmark earnings. If I need to make $30K to pay that, and obviously there's interest in that sort of stuff, we don't need to go into that. I need to have either a separate fund set aside, or every single dollar that comes in, I put a percentage aside, whatever it may be, and I earmark those for these are going to be to pay off student loans. But all of this is still pretty big. If you look at this sort of stuff, I can definitely earmark, I can set up a different fund or something like that. But in terms of what we're doing thus far, these are way too lofty for me to actually turn into an act. And so that might be one of the first steps I can do. If we work all the way back, just for the sake of illustration, I could potentially create a fund or account, we'll say, and set up an automatic deposit would be the next step as an example. So set up auto deposit into that fund, right? Or if I wanted to do this a different way and just say, I want to up the payments or something like that, I can do that where it goes directly to the student loans. And instead of saying, paying $500 a month right now or something like that, I can make it $750 a month or something like that. The beauty of doing this exercise is that you can actually start thinking, okay, what is the next logical step? I personally would like to go like the create a fund route, simply because then I have more control, right? I can see that money getting deposited in there, but I don't actually have to manually do it. So that's helpful. And then as that account grows, then I can visually see, okay, when I'm ready to pull the trigger and move from this account into paying a student loan payment, that will actually lower the student loan payment, right? And so again, you can get really granular with this, but what you cannot do is have a goal and then just only stick in this area. You want to get rid of something. In this case, it's an actual thing. But if you have, say, we'll do one more and say you have too many meetings or something like that, as we do a quick timeline here. If you want to have only 2 meetings a week, as an example, and you currently are having 15 a week, okay, what needs to happen from here? Well, the final step probably is having frameworks in place, or we could say boundaries, constraints, whatever you want, so that you can never go over that. But in the short term, it might be something as simple as evaluating your calendar and looking at recurring meetings or something like that, and deciding, okay, among all these recurring meetings, how many of these do I actually have to take? How many of these could turn into an email or a simple Loom video so I can eliminate one meeting at a time? Another one in here might be changing up your Calendly availability. Another one in here would be requiring an agenda before a meeting, otherwise the meeting doesn't happen. So you can kind of see how you can slowly get down there. For me, when I burnt out, I had this exact problem, except it was 20 meetings a week. But the first step I did was I sent an email to every single person at the company and clients saying, my availability is now only going to be on Tuesdays and Thursdays. I will honor the rest of the meetings this month. I think it was February at the time I sent this. But after February is done, if you send me a meeting for a Monday, Wednesday, or Friday, I will say maybe at best. I will not actually attend as a guarantee, as an example. And then of course I went through these sorts of things and slowly got it actually down to 2 meetings a week. This is the exercise on how you can just pull from the Antivision one thing at a time. So you can create several timelines. You can use Canva, you can handwrite it if that feels good to you, but this is what I highly recommend, because when you can get things into bite-sized chunks instead of this big lofty thing, when it's big and lofty, it feels overwhelming. When you get into bite-sized chunks, it's like, oh, all I have to do is just look at my recurring meetings today. Pretty simple. You stop being your own worst enemy when you realize the obstacle is the way. Things aren't happening to us, they're happening for us. We don't have to do these things, we get to do these things. I'll leave you with the sentiment from The Obstacle is the Way. There's this passage that I think makes perfect sense and summarizes all of this from this book. I'm going to paraphrase it a little bit. After we discard our expectations and accept what happens to us, after understanding that certain things, particularly bad things, are outside our control, it's this: love whatever happens to us and face it with unfailing cheerfulness. It is the act of turning what we must do into what we get to do. And so if you got value out of this video, I would love if you could like and subscribe. It helps gets the channel found and gets it to more people just like you. And know that we are all capable of being our own worst enemy. It is not something that we just solve, right? But it's not terminal. Check out the antivision below, offload one thing using a timeline, and go out there and start being your #1 cheerleader. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate your attention, and we'll see you in the next one.